Hello there, you perfectly lovely people. My name is Sarah, and this evening I'm reading from 101 Dalmatians by Dodie Smith. We're on to chapter 11, In the Enemy's Camp. It was less than an hour later when Missis opened her eyes. She'd been dreaming of the puppies and she had heard them barking, and they were barking. She sprang out of the straw and dashed to the window. No pup was to be seen, but she could hear the barking clearly. It was coming from inside the black house. Then the barking grew louder. The door to the stable yard opened and out came a stream of puppies. Missis blinked. Surely her puppies could not have grown so much in less than a week. And surely she had not had so many puppies. More and more were hurrying out. The whole yard was filling up with a fine, large, healthy Dalmatian puppies. But Missis raised her head in a wail of despair. These puppies were not hers at all. The whole thing was a mistake. Her puppies were still lost, perhaps starving, perhaps even dead. Again and again she howled in anguish. Her first howl had wakened Pongo. He was beside her in a couple of seconds and staring at the yard, full of milling, tumbling puppies, and they were still coming out of the house. Rather smaller puppies now. And then they saw him. Smaller even than they had remembered. Lucky. There was no mistaking that horseshoe of spots on his back. And after that came Roly-Poly, falling over his feet as usual, then Patch, and the tiny cad pig, and all the others. All well, all lashing their tails, all eager to drink at the low trough of water that stood about in the yard. "Look, Patch is helping the cad pig to find a place," said Missis delightedly. "But what does that mean? Where have all the other puppies come from?" Dazed as he was with sleep, Pongo's keen brain had gone into instant action. He saw it all. Cruella must have begun stealing puppies months before, soon after that evening when she had said she would like a Dalmatian fur coat. The largest pups in the yard looked at least 5 months old. Then they went down and down in size. Smallest and youngest of all were his own puppies, which must obviously have been the last to be stolen. He had barely finished explaining this to Missis when the sheepdog reached the top of the stairs. He'd been downstairs getting in fresh water and had heard Missis howl. "Well, now you know," he said. "I was hoping you could have had your sleep out first." "But why are you both looking so worried?" asked Missis. "Our puppies are safe and well." "Yes, my dear, you go on watching them," said Pongo gently. Then he turned to Colonel. "You come downstairs and have a drink, my boy," said the Colonel. And oh, how Pongo needed that drink. "And now stroll down to the pond with me," said the Colonel, gripping the handle of the little tin bucket in his teeth. "You won't feel like trying to sleep any more at the present." Pongo felt he would never be able to sleep again. "I blame myself for letting you in for this shock," said the Colonel, as they went out into the early morning sunlight. "Because you can't blame the Lieutenant. She is not a trained observer. When she told me the place was seething with Dalmatian puppies, I naturally thought she meant your puppies only. After all, 15 puppies can do quite a bit of seething. It was only yesterday, after all. I'd made the folly my headquarters and I could see over the wall that I found out the true facts. Of course, I sent the news over yesterday's twilight barking, but couldn't reach you." "How many puppies are there?" asked Pongo. "Can't tell you exactly, they never keep still, but I'd say, counting yours, getting on for 100. 100? They'd reached the pond. "Have another drink," suggested the Colonel. Pongo gulped down some more water, then stared hopelessly at the sheepdog. "Colonel, what am I going to do?" "Will your lady wife just want to rescue her own puppies?" "Well, she may at first," said Pongo, "but not when she realised it would mean leaving all the others to a certain death." "Anyway, your puppies aren't old enough for the journey," said the Colonel. "I suppose you know that." Pongo did know it. His plan had been to let his puppies stay at Hell Hall until they were a little bigger, while he and the Missis kept watch over them, ready to rescue them if danger threatened. He told the Colonel this. "That is exactly what you must do," said the Colonel. "But what about the other puppies?" "I shall spread the news of them throughout England. Other parents may come to the rescue." "I doubt it, after all this time," said Pongo. "If the worst comes to the worst, would your pets give them a home?" Pongo couldn't imagine the dearlies refusing to help any dog, but getting on for 100? Still, the drawing room was very large. I don't believe they'd turn them all away, he said. But Colonel, I could never get the whole lot of them to London. Not as they are, of course. Every dog jack of them has to be trained. They must learn to march, to obey orders. I may teach the bigger ones how to forage. I wouldn't mind learning that myself, said Pongo. Splendid. Now, how about trying your mouth at carrying this pail? It's a trick you ought to learn. No, hold your head further out. Then the pail won't bang on your chest. Excellent. Pongo found that he could carry the bucket of water quite easily. His spirits were rising now. With this wonderful old colonel to help him, he would rescue every puppy. He set the bucket down in the folly. You're looking better, said the colonel. You may be able to sleep now. There's nothing more you and your lady can do until it's dark. Then we shall meet your family. Meanwhile, I'll send the word that you have arrived. Something was puzzling Pongo. Colonel, why did Cruella steal so many Dalmatians? She can't want more than one Dalmatian for a coat. The sheepdog looked astonished. Surely you know that her husband is a furrier. I understand she only married him for his furs. So that was it. Pongo had forgotten. But if the DeVilles planned to sell Dalmatian coats to the public, then Hill Hall was nothing than a Dalmatian fur farm, and no Dalmatian would ever be safe again, unless Cruella's career came to an end. I must cope with that when I get back to London, thought Pongo grimly, as he mounted the stairs. He found Missis stretched out on the bare boards by the window. She had watched until the puppies had all gone in, and then she toppled into sleep. He pulled straw round her and lay down very close to keep her warm. She did not... Come on, Daisy. Sorry, my dog wants to listen. He pulled straw around her, lay down very close to keep her warm. She did not stir. His last waking thoughts were humbled ones. He'd expected the sheepdog to be some doddering old country gaffer. How much now depended on this shrewd, kind old soldier. It was dark when the colonel woke them. All still well with the puppies, but no news of any other parents over the twilight barking. I sent word of your safe arrival, and good wishes to you came pouring in. All of dogdom awaits news from this quiet village. I've said you'll bark a few words yourself when you are finally rested. Willingly, said Pongo. Now, down we go for dinner, said the colonel. They went down and had an excellent meal of sausages, which the cat had collected during the day. She was away at the farm. The colonel said there would be hurt feelings if she didn't join her pets at tea to drink a saucer of milk. And I must go back later because my young pet Tommy likes me there while he has his bath. So let's be moving. He rose and pushed open a window. The defences of Hell Hall are childish, he said. What's the use of padlock gates at the folly when one can get in the back through this folly? Pongo then saw that the folly had a door and a window opening onto the grounds of Hell Hall, as well as the door and the window opening onto the heath, and was indeed a sort of gatehouse. The colonel had originally entered through the window on the heath side. The door into the grounds was bolted on the Hell Hall side, so the colonel led Pongo and Missis through the window. Now we'll be cautious, he said. That window might blow shut and there's no handle on the outside, and it might take some time to unbolt this door. He drew back the bolt on the door into the folly and pushed the door open. It rolled a heavy stone against it. Now, if you should want to get out in a hurry, but I don't think you will, shouldn't wonder if you couldn't spend the night with your pups. Missis gasped with delight and began to ask questions. I'll explain as we go, said the colonel, starting towards Hell Hall. I think Missis and Pongo are going to see their puppies soon. I hope you've enjoyed that story this evening. I hope you've had a nice bath. I hope you've cleaned your teeth. I hope you've washed your hands. And now I want you to go to bed, snuggle down, give yourself a great big cuddle. And I hope to see you tomorrow evening. Night night.